I thought I knew everything about my wife of 43 years until I found a letter hidden in her jewelry box that revealed she had been secretly in love with my best friend our entire marriage. And what happened next will shock you to your core. Hey there, my wonderful viewers. Welcome back to Mind-Blowing Stories. I'm your host, Frank Patterson, coming to you from my little studio here in Toledo, Ohio. Before we dive into today's story, I gotta tell you something that just breaks this old heart of mine. Would you believe that out of all you beautiful people watching right now, 96% of you aren't subscribed to this channel? 96%. That just makes me sadder than a dog left out in the rain. If you're enjoying these stories from my life, would you please hit that subscribe button? It would mean the world to an old guy like me. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. I read every single one, and they keep me going more than you'll ever know. Now today I'm gonna share with you folks the most painful and beautiful story from my past. It's about love, betrayal, and a truth that nearly destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. This one's gonna hurt, but sometimes the most important stories are the ones that hurt the most. It was the summer of 1982, and I was 37 years old, married to my beautiful wife Sarah for 15 years. We lived in a modest two-story house on Maple Street in Columbus, Ohio, with our twin daughters, Amy and Jennifer, who were 12 at the time. Life was good, or so I thought. I was working as a foreman at the General Motors plant, bringing home decent money, and Sarah was teaching third grade at the local elementary school. We had our routine, our comfortable life, our dreams for the future. Sarah was everything a man could want in a wife. She had these stunning green eyes that could light up a room, auburn hair that fell in gentle waves past her shoulders, and a smile that could melt the coldest heart. She was kind, patient, especially with the kids, and had this laugh that sounded like wind chimes on a summer evening. After 15 years of marriage, I still got butterflies when she walked into a room. My best friend since high school was a guy named Danny Morrison. Danny was one of those guys who seemed to have it all figured out. He was tall, dark-haired, with an easy charm that made everyone gravitate toward him. He'd been the quarterback on our football team, could fix any car engine, and had a way with words that made people hang on every sentence. Danny had never gotten married, said he was too much of a free spirit for that, but he was always around our house, almost like part of the family. The three of us had been inseparable since Sarah and I started dating in college. Danny was the best man at our wedding, the godfather to our girls, the guy who'd show up with pizza on Friday nights to watch the game. He'd take the girls fishing, help me fix the roof, and Sarah would always make an extra plate when she knew he was coming by. It was the perfect friendship, the kind you read about in books. That summer started like any other. The girls were out of school, Sarah had her break from teaching, and we were planning our annual camping trip to Lake Erie with Danny and a few other couples. I remember feeling so grateful for my life, so content with everything we'd built together. Sarah seemed happy too, singing while she did the dishes, planning little day trips for the family, talking about maybe getting a dog when the girls got a little older. But looking back now, I can see the signs I missed. The way Sarah would get quiet sometimes when Danny was around, how she'd find excuses to leave the room when he started telling his stories. The way she'd watch him when she thought nobody was looking, with an expression I couldn't quite place at the time. I thought it was just sisterly affection, you know? They'd known each other almost as long as I'd known both of them. The camping trip was set for the third weekend in July. We'd reserved the same spot we'd been going to for 5 years, right on the shoreline with a perfect view of the sunset. Sarah had been planning the meals for weeks, making lists, buying supplies. She seemed excited, maybe more excited than usual, but I just figured she was looking forward to the break from routine. Danny picked us up that Friday afternoon in his old blue Ford pickup truck, the bed loaded down with camping gear and coolers full of food. The girls were practically bouncing out of their seats with excitement, chattering about marshmallows and ghost stories and swimming in the lake. Sarah sat in the middle of the front seat, between Danny and me, and I had my arm around her shoulders, feeling like the luckiest man alive. We set up camp as the sun was starting to get low in the sky, working together like we had so many times before. Danny and I handled the heavy lifting while Sarah organized the campsite with military precision. The girls helped where they could, mostly just getting in the way, but having a ball doing it. By the time we had everything set up, we were all hungry and tired and ready for Sarah's famous campfire chili. That first night around the fire was perfect. We told stories, roasted marshmallows, watched the stars come out over the water. The girls fell asleep in their tent around 10, and the 3 of us adults sat there talking and laughing until well past midnight. I remember thinking that this was what life was all about, these moments with the people you love most in the world. The next day was beautiful, sunny and warm, with just enough breeze off the lake to keep us comfortable. We spent the morning swimming and playing volleyball on the beach. Sarah looked amazing in her blue one-piece swimsuit, and I caught myself staring at her like some lovesick teenager. She noticed and laughed, splashing water at me, telling me I was being silly. Danny was teaching the girls how to skip stones, and their delighted squeals carried across the water. That afternoon, I volunteered to drive into town to get some supplies we'd forgotten. Sarah said she wanted to stay and read her book, and Danny decided to take a nap in his tent. The girls wanted to come with me, so off we went, leaving Sarah alone at the campsite for a couple of hours. When we got back, everything seemed normal. Sarah was sitting in her folding chair, book in her lap, watching the water. Danny was awake, tending the fire for dinner. But something felt different, though I couldn't put my finger on what it was. Sarah seemed quieter than usual, and Danny kept glancing at her when he thought I wasn't looking. I shrugged it off, figured maybe they'd had some silly argument while we were gone. Dinner was delicious as always, and we had another great night around the fire. But I noticed Sarah excused herself to go to bed earlier than usual, claiming she had a headache. Danny and I stayed up for another hour, talking about work and life and our plans for the future. He seemed distracted, not his usual animated self, but I figured he was just tired from all the sun and activity. Sunday morning, our last day, I woke up early and decided to surprise Sarah by making coffee and bringing her a cup before she got out of bed. We'd packed our little camp stove in our tent, so I fired it up as quietly as I could. As I was waiting for the water to boil, I heard voices outside. Sarah and Danny, talking in hushed tones somewhere near the water's edge. I couldn't make out the words, but something about the tone made me pause. They sounded serious, intense, not like their usual casual conversations. I peeked out of the tent flap and saw them standing close together, Danny's hand on Sarah's arm. My heart started beating faster, but I told myself I was being ridiculous. These were the 2 people I trusted most in the world. Then I saw Danny lean down and kiss her forehead, a gentle, lingering kiss that lasted way too long to be friendly. Sarah didn't pull away. Instead, she reached up and touched his face, looking into his eyes with an expression I'd never seen her give anyone else, not even me. My world tilted on its axis. The camp stove was forgotten. The coffee was forgotten. Everything was forgotten except the sight of my wife and my best friend sharing a moment that clearly wasn't the first of its kind. I felt like I was going to be sick, like someone had punched me in the stomach, and I couldn't catch my breath. I backed away from the tent opening, my hands shaking, my mind racing. How long had this been going on? What exactly was going on? Were they having an affair? Planning to have one? Had they already crossed lines I didn't want to think about? The questions hammered at my brain like physical blows. I forced myself to act normal when they came back to camp a few minutes later, chatting about the weather and what time we should start packing up. Sarah gave me her usual morning kiss, but it felt different now, tainted somehow. Danny clapped me on the shoulder and asked if I'd slept well, and I wanted to punch him right in his lying face. The drive home was torture. Sarah sat between us again, but now I was hyper-aware of every glance between them, every casual touch, every shared smile. The girls chattered away in the back, oblivious to the tension that felt thick enough to cut with a knife. When Danny dropped us off at our house, he hugged Sarah goodbye, and I watched their embrace last just a beat too long. That night after the girls were asleep and we were getting ready for bed, I almost confronted Sarah about what I'd seen. The words were right there on my tongue, ready to spill out and change everything forever. But I couldn't do it. I was too afraid of what she might tell me, too terrified of losing the life we'd built together. Instead, I started watching, paying attention to things I'd never noticed before. The way Sarah's face would light up when Danny called. How she'd dress a little nicer on the days she knew he was coming over. The way they'd sometimes stop talking when I walked into a room, claiming they were just discussing something boring like the weather or the news. For weeks, I tortured myself with suspicion and doubt. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if my wife was in love with another man. During the day, I'd analyze every interaction, looking for clues, signs, proof of what I thought I already knew, but was too afraid to confirm. The breaking point came in early September. Sarah had gone to her mother's for the weekend to help with some home repairs, taking the girls with her. I was alone in the house, feeling sorry for myself and drinking too much beer, when I decided to do something I'd never done in 15 years of marriage. I decided to snoop. I started in our bedroom, not really sure what I was looking for, but driven by a need to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I went through her dresser drawers, her closet, even looked under the mattress like some paranoid husband in a bad movie. I was about to give up, feeling guilty and stupid, when I remembered her jewelry box. Sarah had this antique jewelry box that had belonged to her grandmother, a beautiful wooden thing with little compartments and a tiny dancing ballerina that spun when you opened the lid. She kept her few pieces of good jewelry in there, along with some sentimental items from when we were dating and when the girls were born. I opened the box, and the little ballerina started her familiar dance. At first, I just saw the usual things: her wedding ring set when she wasn't wearing it, the pearl earrings I'd given her for our 10th anniversary, the charm bracelet the girls had made for her last Mother's Day. But then I noticed something I'd never seen before, tucked away in a small compartment at the back. It was a letter, folded small and worn soft from handling. My hands were shaking as I unfolded it, and I immediately recognized Danny's handwriting. The date at the top was from 3 months earlier, in June, just before our camping trip. "My dearest Sarah," the letter began, and my heart sank to my shoes. "I can't keep pretending anymore. I can't keep smiling and acting like everything is normal when every day I love you more and every day I hate myself for it. You know how I feel about you. You've known for years, haven't you? The way I look at you, the way I find excuses to be near you, the way I hang on to your every word like a man dying of thirst. I know you're married to Frank, and I know he's my best friend, and I know this makes me the worst kind of person. But I can't help it, Sarah. I've tried to stay away, tried to convince myself that what I feel isn't real, but it is. It's the most real thing in my life. You're everything I never knew I wanted. Your laugh, your smile, the way you hum while you're cooking, the way you tuck your hair behind your ear when you're concentrating. I love how patient you are with Amy and Jennifer, how you light up when you talk about your students, how you make Frank laugh even when he's had the worst day at work. I love you, Sarah. I've loved you since the day Frank brought you home from college, and I've spent 20 years trying to bury that love because I knew it was wrong. But it won't stay buried. It keeps growing stronger, and I'm running out of strength to fight it. I don't know what I expect you to do with this confession. I'm not asking you to leave Frank. I'm not asking you to choose me. I just need you to know, need someone in this world to know that you are loved completely and desperately by someone who would give anything to trade places with the man who gets to call you his wife. Maybe after you read this, you'll ask me to stay away, and I'll understand if you do. Maybe this will ruin everything between all of us, and if it does, that's my fault and mine alone. But I couldn't live with myself anymore without telling you the truth. I love you, Sarah Elizabeth Patterson. I love you, and I'm sorry, and I hope someday you can forgive me for being too weak to keep it to myself. Forever yours, whether you want me to be or not. Danny, I read that letter 3 times before the words really sank in. My best friend was in love with my wife, had been in love with her for years, and he'd finally worked up the courage to tell her. But what did Sarah think about it? How had she responded? Why was she keeping the letter? I sat there on our bed, holding that piece of paper, feeling like my entire world was crumbling around me. Everything I thought I knew about my life, about the people closest to me, was suddenly in question. Had Sarah written back? Had they acted on these feelings? Was my marriage a lie? But then I started thinking about Sarah, really thinking about her, not just my fears and suspicions. I thought about how she'd been acting lately, the little changes I'd noticed and attributed to guilt or secrecy. The way she'd been more affectionate with me, more attentive. The way she'd been looking at me across the dinner table like she was trying to memorize my face. The way she'd curl up next to me on the couch in the evenings, even when her favorite TV show was on. And I started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, I'd been reading the signs all wrong. When Sarah came home Sunday night, I was waiting for her in the kitchen, the letter spread out on the table in front of me. The girls ran straight upstairs to their room, exhausted from the weekend with their grandmother, so it was just the 2 of us facing each other across that small piece of paper that contained enough dynamite to blow up our entire family. Sarah saw the letter and went completely white. She grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself, and for a moment I thought she might faint. Then she looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not guilt, not defiance, but a deep, overwhelming sadness that seemed to come from the very center of her soul. "Frank," she whispered, and her voice was so broken it nearly undid me right there. I'm so sorry you had to find out this way." I asked her if she loved him, the question scraping my throat raw on its way out. She was quiet for so long I thought she wasn't going to answer. When she finally spoke, her words were so soft I had to lean forward to hear them. "I don't know," she said. "I thought I might. For a while, I thought I might." That honesty hit me harder than any lie could have. She wasn't trying to protect me or herself, wasn't trying to minimize what had happened or what she'd felt. She was just telling me the truth, and somehow that made it both worse and better at the same time. She told me about the night at the lake, how Danny had asked her to take a walk with him while I was asleep, how he'd told her about the letter he'd written, but was too scared to give her, how he'd confessed his feelings face to face, under the stars, with tears in his eyes, how she'd let him hold her hand and tell her about 20 years of secret love and longing. And then she told me something that probably saved our marriage. She said that listening to Danny pour his heart out to her had made her realize something she'd been too blind to see, that she'd been taking our love for granted, treating it like some comfortable old shoe instead of the precious gift it really was. That hearing how desperately Danny wanted what I had made her understand how incredibly lucky she was to have it. She said she'd spent the rest of that weekend thinking about our life together, really thinking about it for the first time in years. Remembering our first date, our wedding day, the night the girls were born. Thinking about all the small moments that make up a marriage, all the quiet intimacies that you stop noticing after they become routine. The way I made her coffee every morning exactly the way she liked it. The way I still opened doors for her after 15 years. The way I'd hold her when she cried about a difficult student or a fight with her sister. She said she realized that what Danny was offering her wasn't love, it was fantasy. The excitement of something new and forbidden, the thrill of being desired by someone who'd put her on a pedestal for 20 years. But what we had was real love, messy and comfortable, and tested by time and hardship and the daily work of building a life together. She told me she'd written Danny back, and she went upstairs to get her copy of the letter from her nightstand drawer. I read it while she sat beside me, crying quietly. "Dear Danny," her letter said, "I can't keep your letter because keeping it would be a betrayal of my husband and my marriage and everything I believe in. But I can't throw it away either, because it's too beautiful and honest to destroy, and because I need to remember this feeling for the rest of my life. You asked me if I could forgive you for loving me, but there's nothing to forgive. How could I be angry at you for seeing something worth loving in me? How could I blame you for feelings you never asked for and tried so hard to hide? But Danny, what you love isn't really me. It's the idea of me, the version of me that exists in your imagination. You love the woman who laughs at Frank's jokes at dinner parties, but you've never seen me when I'm sick with the flu and I'm cranky and demanding. You love the mother who's patient with Amy and Jennifer, but you've never had to be the bad guy who grounds them or takes away their privileges. You love the teacher who's passionate about her students, but you've never seen me grade papers until midnight, so exhausted I can barely see straight. The woman you love is real, but she's only part of who I am. Frank sees all of me, loves all of me, even the parts that aren't lovable. He's seen me at my absolute worst and chosen to stay. He's held my hair while I threw up, listened to me cry about things that don't matter, forgiven me for mistakes I can barely forgive myself for. That's not romance, Danny. That's love. Real, deep, forever love that goes beyond attraction and excitement and fantasy. I won't lie to you. Part of me was flattered by your confession, maybe even a little tempted by the idea of being adored the way you adore me. For a moment, sitting there by the lake, I let myself imagine what it would be like to start over with someone who saw me as perfect and amazing, instead of someone who knew exactly how imperfect and ordinary I really am. But that moment passed, and I knew with absolute certainty that I would rather be truly known and truly loved by one person than idealized and worshipped by 1,000. Frank knows me, Danny, all of me, and he chooses me anyway, every single day. That's the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. So I'm asking you, as someone who cares about you and wants you to find real happiness, to let this go. Stop waiting for me to become available. Stop holding yourself back from finding someone who can love you the way you deserve to be loved. You're a good man, Danny, and some lucky woman is going to see that and grab onto you with both hands. But it's not me. It can't be me. Not because I don't care about you, but because I care too much about all of us to let this destroy what we have. I hope we can still be friends. I hope we can find a way past this that doesn't hurt Frank or the girls or any of us more than necessary. But if we can't, if this has to be goodbye, then I want you to know that your friendship has meant the world to me, and I will always remember you with love and gratitude. Please take care of yourself. Please find someone who can give you everything you're looking for. And please, if you can, try to forgive me for not being able to be that person. With love and respect, Sarah. After I finished reading, we sat there in silence for a long time. Finally, Sarah asked me what I wanted to do. If I wanted her to pack her things, if I wanted a divorce, if I could ever forgive her for having feelings for another man, even if she'd chosen not to act on them. I looked at this woman I'd loved for half my life, this woman who'd been honest with me even when it would have been easier to lie, this woman who'd chosen our imperfect, ordinary, real love over the fantasy of something new and exciting. And I realized that she'd already given me the greatest proof of love I could ever ask for. She'd been tempted, and she'd chosen me anyway. She'd had the opportunity to start over with someone who worshipped her, and she'd decided our complicated, difficult, beautiful marriage was worth more than any fantasy. I told her I didn't want a divorce. I told her I wanted to fall in love with her all over again, the way we should have been doing all along, instead of taking each other for granted. I told her that knowing another man could see how amazing she was just made me realize how lucky I was to be the one she'd chosen to spend her life with. We cried together that night, and we talked until the sun came up. We talked about our marriage, about the ways we'd gotten lazy and complacent, about how we could do better. We talked about Danny, about how to handle the friendship that had been such a big part of our lives. We talked about the girls, about making sure our problems didn't become their problems. And then, for the first time in months, maybe years, we made love like we meant it, like we were choosing each other all over again, like we were two people who'd almost lost something precious and were grateful beyond words to get another chance. Danny came by the next evening, and Sarah and I sat him down together and told him we knew everything. He was embarrassed, ashamed, ready to disappear from our lives forever. But Sarah, bless her heart, wouldn't let him. She told him that love wasn't something to be ashamed of, even when it was complicated and painful. She told him that he was too important to our family to lose over something like this. It took time, and it was awkward for a while, but we found our way back to friendship. Different than before, more honest, but real. Danny eventually met a wonderful woman named Linda at his cousin's wedding 2 years later, And when they got married, Sarah and I were right there in the front row, cheering him on. The girls never knew about any of it, never had to deal with the adult complications that could have torn their family apart. They just knew that their parents suddenly seemed happier, more affectionate, more present in their daily lives. Sarah and I renewed our wedding vows on our 20th anniversary, and this time we meant every word in a way we'd been too young to understand the first time around. We promised to choose each other every day, even when it was hard, even when other choices looked more appealing. We promised to see each other, really see each other, and love what we saw. That was 30 years ago, and I can tell you that we kept those promises. Sarah passed away 3 years ago after a long battle with cancer, and I held her hand as she took her last breath. The last thing she said to me was that she'd never regretted her choice, never wondered what if, never stopped being grateful that she'd married a man who loved her for exactly who she was. I miss her every day, but I'm not sad about our story. I'm grateful for it. Grateful that we had the chance to almost lose each other and choose each other instead. Grateful that we learned the difference between fantasy and reality, between infatuation and love. Grateful that we figured out how precious and fragile and worth fighting for a real marriage really is. Danny's still my friend. He and Linda live in Florida now, and we talk every few weeks. Two old men who've been through more than most friendships can survive. He tells me he's grateful too. Grateful that Sarah helped him understand that love isn't about getting what you want. It's about wanting what's best for the person you love, even when that's not you. The letter Sarah couldn't throw away. She kept it all those years, tucked away in that old jewelry box. After she died, I found it there, along with a note she'd written to me that I'd never seen before. It said, "Frank, I kept this to remind me every day how lucky I am to have a husband instead of an admirer, a partner instead of a fantasy, a man who loves me enough to see my flaws and choose me anyway. Thank you for 43 years of real love. It was better than any fairy tale." So that's my story, folks. It's not the kind of love story you see in the movies, with grand gestures and passionate declarations. It's messier than that, more complicated, more human. But it's real, and sometimes real is the most beautiful thing of all. I hope it reminds you to look at the people in your life, the ones you've maybe started taking for granted, because they're always there. I hope it reminds you that the grass isn't always greener on the other side, that sometimes the most precious things are the ones we already have. And I hope you'll remember to hit that subscribe button if this old man's story touched your heart in any way. Like I said at the beginning, it makes me sad that 96% of you beautiful people aren't subscribed yet. Your support means everything to me, and it helps me keep sharing these stories that I hope make your lives a little richer. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and please leave me a comment below. Tell me about a time when you almost lost something precious, or when you realized you'd been taking something important for granted. I read every single comment, and your stories inspire me more than you know. Until next time, this is Frank Patterson reminding you that the most mind-blowing stories aren't always about adventure and excitement. Sometimes they're about the quiet courage it takes to choose love over fantasy, commitment over convenience, reality over romance. Sometimes the most amazing thing you can do is stay exactly where you are and fight for what you already have. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.